You're about to watch what we call an extended clip of the Young Turks, and the reality is it's somewhere in the middle. It's a little longer than our YouTube clips, but it's actually shorter than the whole 2-hour show, which you can get if you're a member. You can get it ad-free, and make sure you catch every news story we do that day. You're gonna love it as a full show. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Thanks for watching. Welcome to the Young Turks. I am in fact your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'm afraid to inform you that I believe we're about to have a phenomenal show. I need you to panic and I need you to be calm. Let me explain why. The panic is that Tuesday is giant elections. So we've got Maryland, we've got Colorado, we've got New York. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez against Joe Crowley in New York, giant election. If she takes out the number 4 Democrat in the House, that will be an earthquake, and she's got him on the ropes. Here we are again, pins and needles. His internal polling seems to be showing that he's in big trouble. He asked for a debate. Ben Jealous is in Maryland. You've got Roger Manowar. Roger Mano, who I interviewed yesterday in Maryland. A lot of great candidates in Maryland. You got great candidates in Colorado. You got Dylan Ratigan in New York. You got to go vote on Tuesday. Everybody go vote, okay? And then of course we're gonna have giant election coverage here on the Young Turks, as we always do on election night. We'll do the Young Turks, and then we'll do all those races. So that's tyt.com/live. Obviously, the calm part is tonight on Rebel headquarters, which is right after the Young Turks. If you're watching on our website or on our app. tyt.com/app, by the way. I have a person who might change the world, okay? You think that's got to be an exaggeration. I have a really good case to make that it is not. Number 2, news of stunning progressive victories in West Virginia, of all places. Now, they haven't happened yet, but the polling has arrived. Stunning. That's in Rebel headquarters tonight. Tonight on Old School, speaking of stunning, myself, Anna Kasparian, and John Idarola. You know, for all the times that we've been on the air together, I don't think the three of us have ever had, and certainly not an Old School episode, but an episode where we just sit around for an hour and a half and talk about our lives. So you're gonna love that Old School episode. tyt.com/join to become a member, make that happen. And a little bit later in the program, as you guys might have heard by now, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. Donald Trump has conceded on the issue of separating families. Obviously, we'll give you the details. And there's the famous womp womp story. So, and I haven't even gotten to what Wolfpack is about to unveil, which I think you might be excited by. Both good news, bad news. But I'm getting to that in a second. So, but first, let's start with fun. Let's go over here. Mark Sanford was, of course, a former governor of South Carolina, very Republican, but did not follow through on family values. Famously got caught with his mistress in Argentina. Then the Republican voters forgave him, said it's bygones be bygones, and they elected him to Congress in South Carolina. So they didn't mind any of that. But he spoke out mildly a couple of times against Donald Trump, and that they did mind. So he lost his primary recently. And Trump had come out against him and in favor of his opponent on the day of the election. So he was now meeting with GOP members of Congress. Donald Trump was yesterday. So he wanted to rub it in a little bit. Now that's not really that good an idea. You need these guys to pass legislation. You also need them for another reason, which I'll get to in a second. But apparently Trump told members of the GOP that were gathered there, quote, "Is Mark Sanford here? I just want to congratulate him on running a great race," he joked. Apparently Mark Sanford was in the room. He didn't seem to appreciate that, neither did a lot of his colleagues. So Jake Sherman reporting here, wow, Trump says, "Is Mark Sanford here?" As I told you. Then room goes silent. Trump then called him a nasty guy, and the room booed a bit. Wow. A room full of Republican congressmen booing Donald Trump. And so just in case you were unclear on whether he was just joking, no, he called him a nasty guy, he meant it. and he was rubbing it in that he had lost his race. Well, Sanford has a lot of friends in Congress, and you're going to hear from one of them in a second as well. So how did Trump decide that he was going to paint that interaction? Typical pathological liar Donald Trump style. Here he is in a tweet. Had a great meeting with the House GOP last night at the Capitol. They applauded and laughed loudly when I mentioned my experience with Mark Sanford. I've never been a fan of his. They did no such thing. Every report says that they did. The room was at best silent, and many people in the room said that there was audible booing. So hey, look, there's a congressman who went on television, went on CNN. So let's ask him. He's Representative Jeff Denham. He's a Republican, and let's see if he liked Donald Trump making fun of his friend or didn't like it. Let's watch.
Congressman, I do understand the president made some kind of an attempted joke in the caucus overnight about Mark Sanford, who lost his primary. He asked everyone in the room, hey, where's Mark Sanford? He ran a great race, didn't he? It didn't get many laughs, I understand. Was that appropriate for the president to do that?
No, I don't think so. Mark's a good friend of mine. I'm not sure why he did do it. I think certainly the tone of the room was that not only does the president have unwavering support behind this bill, but he expects all Republicans. I mean, he did single out quite a few people, saying that they're his good friends. He would expect them to be with him on the vote. So I think that's where the Mark Sanford issue came in.
So Congressman Denham there is talking about the immigration bill. He needs these guys' votes, so slapping them across the face is not really a great idea. But more importantly, at some point, these are the guys who could be voting on impeachment. For those of you who think that Donald Trump has some sort of strategery, as Bush was made fun of for saying, well, you might want to think about that again. He has no strategy. He has no strategy. He's just a buffoon. He walks in, he's like, I beat Mark Sanford, didn't I? Oh, you guys are all friends with him. Oh, you might vote on my impeachment later. Oh, yeah, I didn't think that through. Oops. That's okay, I'm gonna go online and lie about it. Oh, they laughed like crazy. They loved it. They loved it. They were in the room. So you could lie to your own fans and you could lie to the press, but those are the votes you need at a minimum for legislation and perhaps to save your own skin at some point. And my guess is they are not going to appreciate the salt in their wounds. Okay, brilliant as usual from the very staple genius. All right, now, speaking of being in trouble and perhaps one of the things that he should be concerned about, now we go to Michael Cohen. So of course, Michael Cohen was Donald Trump's personal lawyer. The government raided his offices, his home, his hotel. They have a ton of his materials going through about 3.7 million files, I believe. So of course, the big question is, if they have Michael Cohen committing some serious crimes, which is not much of an if, will Michael Cohen flip on Donald Trump? Well, we are beginning to get that answer. This is important. So first of all, just an interesting note today that might give you a small clue. He said Michael Cohen, as this is reported by Ken Meyer at Mediaite and ABC and many others, Michael Cohen has resigned from his position on the Republican National Committee's Finance Committee amid his ongoing legal troubles and investigations into his business affairs. Now that's a small note because nobody's surprised that he's stepping down from that, as he might face massive charges and is a bit distracted. It's actually a little surprising he hadn't already stepped down. But is it a harbinger of things to come? Well, there we go to a CNN report, and the answer seems to be a resounding yes. So CNN reporting, Donald Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, has signaled to friends that he is, quote, willing to give investigators information on the president if that's what they're looking for. I got news for you. That's what they're looking for. Okay, so now, were the friends clear, or was it like, it's a little vague, can't quite tell? Well, let's go to their direct quotes. A friend of Michael Cohen says he feels let down by him, referring to Donald Trump, and isolated by him. Well, that's true. Trump has now jettisoned him, as he does with all former allies, in order to save his own skin. So he says, oh, no, Cohen's not my attorney anymore. And the only thing that he's offered Michael Cohen is implicitly offering pardons by going around and giving pardons to other people who have committed similar crimes to Michael Cohen, or potentially, because Michael Cohen not even charged at this point.
We need to talk about a relatively new show called the Republic, or UNFTR. As a Young Turks fan, you already know that the government, the media, and corporations are constantly peddling lies that serve the interests of the rich and powerful. But now there's a podcast dedicated to unraveling those lies, debunking the conventional wisdom. In each episode of On the Republic, or UNFTR, the host delves into a different historical episode or topic that's generally misunderstood or purposely obfuscated by the so-called powers that be, featuring in-depth research, razor-sharp commentary, and just the right amount of vulgarity. The UNFTR podcast takes a sledgehammer to what you thought you knew about some of the nation's most sacred historical cows. But don't just take my word for it. The New York Times described UNFTR as consistently compelling and educational, aiming to challenge conventional wisdom and upend the historical narratives that were taught in school. For as the great philosopher Yoda once put it, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's true whether you're in Jedi training or you're uprooting and exposing all the propaganda and disinformation you've been fed over the course of your lifetime. So search for UNFTR in your podcast app today and get ready to get informed, angered, and entertained all at the same time.
If I'm right, he will be charged, and significantly so. And remember, for the federal cases, Trump could pardon Michael Cohen, but he cannot pardon him if they bring state charges. So now, even his friends say, look, if the charges are shao-shao, they're small, well then, he'll be a tough guy and he'll serve whatever term he gets. On the other hand, if they're large, pull the shoe, gone, out of here. Okay, so one of the friends said, quote, anything is possible. When you've got a slimy character like Michael Cohen, who made a living being Donald Trump's fixer. By the way, do any of you guys need a fixer? If you're not going around breaking laws and doing terrible things, you usually don't need a fixer. Fixers come in to fix things that are broken, and Trump has broken a lot of things. So that guy is not, I've said from day one, is not likely to be like, you know what, I have principles. I will go to prison for decades to support the other corrupt guy who left me hang out here to dry, right? Probably not. So now we go to the even more relevant quotes from his friends. They say he knows a lot of things about the president. This is one of Michael Cohen's friends. He knows a lot of things about the president, and he's not averse to talking in the right situation. The right situation being facing a long prison sentence, which again, he hasn't been charged. Maybe they'll go through all of his documents and they'll go, oh my God, the guy's actually totally clean. He was telling the truth the whole time. The taxi cabs things are fine. There's no dealings with the Russians. The payments to the Stormy Daniels and everything else was above board. There was no campaign finance violations. Way to be a great lawyer, Michael Cohen. He's not putting these leaks out in the press because he thinks they don't have the dirt on him. It's not like Michael Cohen's going, look through my papers. Have fun, guys. There's nothing in there. There's nothing to flip on. Instead, Michael Cohen's reaction and what he's telling his friends and telling them to go talk to CNN is, I'm in a panic. Okay, I'll take a deal. Given the right situation, I'll take a deal. I'll take it. Because he knows what he did and he knows what Trump did. One more from his friends. Quote, if they want information on Trump, he's willing to give it. I don't think that lacks clarity. I think it's fairly clear which way he's gonna go. Tick, 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 tick. State charges on Michael Cohen, and God knows what happens next. Because if that leads to Trump, it could also, by the way, lead to Ivanka Trump, which could then get Trump to go, I never wanted to be in office anyway. I'm gonna run some Trump towers all over the world. I didn't want this job anyway. Okay, we'll see. I grant you there's some speculation here, but the important information here is it appears that Michael Cohen is definitely willing to flip And if he does, that could be a treasure chest. And finally, we go to Michael Cohen himself, because in his resignation from the RNC, he put this note that he did not need to put in there to give you a sense of where his mind's at and what he's saying publicly. So he said, as the son of a Polish Holocaust survivor, the images and sounds of this family separation policy is heart-wrenching, obviously referring to the immigration situation now. While I strongly support measures that will secure our porous borders, children should never be used as bargaining chips. It doesn't seem like he's on Trump's side on that one. Tick, 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 tick. That's about as good news as you can get today. Oh, I can't wait for.
Ladies and gentlemen, we got.
Not yet, though. Not yet. Hold for another day. Okay, let me keep going here. Now, I have interesting news for you guys on Wolfpack, so let's go to that. So fantastic news out of Wolfpack in Maryland. There's a lot of good parts to this, as you'll see. First of all, we went to the Maryland House of Delegates, the Wolfpack did, and if you're not familiar with the organization, wolf-pack.com, they're looking to get money out of politics, and they're not playing around, as you'll see in the story I'm about to explain. And they've already gotten 5 states to say, yeah, let's go to a convention, let's propose an amendment, let's go around Washington, we don't need them, we can get money out of politics and amend the United States Constitution. 5 states, including the largest one in the country, California. So they go to Maryland, they go to the House of Delegates, and they've never passed there before, we've been trying for quite some time, and guess what happens this year? Crushing victory, 94-42. All right, now that's fantastic, but you got to pass in both sides of the legislature. So they go over to the Senate, and they've had good results in the Senate in the past, so this ought to be fairly straightforward. And they actually have 24 co-sponsors on the Senate side. And as usual, let me give you a little bit of credit here. On the House side, Speaker Mike Bush was critical. Wonderful job by him in getting this through. And on the Senate side, our sponsor was Senator Paul Pinsky, and he's got 24 co-sponsors lined up. Guess how many senators there are in Maryland? There's only 47 state senators. That means, I can do the math on that one, we're gonna win, and we're gonna put Maryland on the board, right? Well, now here comes the unfortunate part of the story. So you got to go through a committee before you get to the whole Senate. And the whole Senate, we're nearly guaranteed a victory. We have more co-sponsors, not only people willing to vote for us, but sponsors of the bill than you need for a majority. So great, right? But going through the committee, we have the votes lined up. And it turns out they get calls from lobbyists, but not Republican lobbyists, Democratic lobbyists, saying the National Democratic Party and some so-called progressive groups in Washington are not happy with this legislation. They're not in favor of this change. And all of a sudden, a couple of people that were supposed to vote for it back out. We don't make it out of committee, and it dies. So this is how politics is played, guys. It's hardball. But here's the interesting part. 2 can play at that game. So I introduce to you now the concept of hardball from us. wolf-pack.com/stick. So there are carrots and sticks in politics. It is now time for the sticks. So the person who decided to not vote for our bill is up for election for state Senate. We will not be supporting her. We will be supporting her opponent, and significantly so. Now, here's the twist. Oftentimes, progressives are outgunned. There's a lot more money on the other side because of corporations, et cetera, et cetera. Well, when it comes to local races, we are not outgunned. Wolfpack actually has a financial advantage. Sometimes when we do this, people cry about it. They go, oh, well, you're supposed to get money out of politics, but you're putting money into politics here. Goddamn right we are. There's an easy way to fix that. You can get money out of politics. You could vote for our bill and then you won't have any of these problems. So I want you to go to that because I want you to donate. I want us to raise a ton of money. We already have a good war chest. We'd like a bigger one so that there are consequences for not voting in the right direction. Now, great news here. The person that this senator is against is a wonderful politician by the name of Antonio Hayes. He already voted for our legislation, was a co-sponsor of it in the House. He's now running for that same Senate seat. And in fact, he was just endorsed too by the Baltimore Sun. I'm gonna read you that endorsement in a second, but Antonio Hayes is wonderful. He wants to get money out of politics. By the way, he also wants to do criminal justice reform. He's a terrific progressive candidate, so that money will go towards supporting him and making sure that you have an actual progressive senator who wants to get money out of politics in the Maryland state seat. The Baltimore Sun said Mr. Hayes grew up in Penn North neighborhood, has an excellent understanding of his community's needs, including expanded drug treatment and mental health services and economic development. So we will support candidates who are on our side, and we will defeat candidates who are not. So if you want to get involved, definitely go and contribute at wolf-pack.com/stick. But also, if you're in Maryland, it's time to ride. This election is on Tuesday. So there's canvassing going on. There's phone calls being made from all across the country. So I need you to go to Maryland at wolf-pack.com to join the team that is doing this fight. If you've got money, you want to put it in, great. If you don't have money and you want to volunteer, excellent, that's okay. We're gonna do it either way, right? And we're gonna do it with your help. And when we canvass in numbers. And when we make phone calls, we make a lot of them. That's called a wolf attack team.
At TYT, we frequently talk about all the ways that big tech companies are taking control of our online lives, constantly monitoring us and storing and selling our data. But that doesn't mean we have to let them. It's possible to stay anonymous online and hide your data from the prying eyes of big tech. And one of the best ways is with ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN hides your IP address, making your activity more difficult to trace and sell to advertisers. ExpressVPN also encrypts 100% of your network data to protect you from eavesdroppers and cyber criminals. And it's also easy to install. A single mouse click protects all your devices. But listen guys, this is important. ExpressVPN is rated #1 by CNET and Wired magazine. So take back control of your life online and secure your data with a top VPN solution available, ExpressVPN. And if you go to expressvpn.com/TYT, you can get 3 extra months for free with this exclusive link just for TYT fans. That's expressvpn.com/TYT. Check it out today.
Here's what you don't want: the wolf attack team showing up. I remember the story in New Hampshire. A guy voted against us. In that case, he was a Republican. His name was Steve Valancourt. He had been in office since the 1990s. He was such a well-established incumbent that they thought that he could not be beat. I have in my office a framed copy of the local newspaper that says Valancourt loses in stunning defeat. The night before his defeat, he ran into one of our organizers, who's now the national director of Wolfpack, and he asked him, "Are you the ones coming for me?" Correct answer, yes. I told you when we started Wolfpack, they're not coming for us anymore, we're coming for them. So let's go get this seat. Let's put a senator in there who actually votes with the people and who votes against corruption. And next year, I guess my bet would be that vote comes out a little differently. So let's go make that happen, whether you volunteer or you want to give to wolf-pack.com/stick. Let's finally bring consequences upon the heads of the people who have made the wrong decisions. Let's end corruption. Okay. Now, before I leave you, I should note, by the way, that that guy that Valancourt ran into before we ended his career, Mike Mineta, is going to be with me this weekend in Washington. We're going to National Citizen Leadership Conference, and that's at the Washington Hilton. You guys can come. Register at citizenleaders.us. There's a lot of great groups there looking to get money out of politics. I will actually be debating a group that doesn't want a convention. That ought to be very, very interesting. You're gonna wanna be in that room. By the way, use the promo code TYT. I forgot to tell you guys this on the show yesterday. You get $50 off. So citizenleaders.us, use promo code TYT. It's American Promise puts it on. They're a wonderful group. Nina Turner's going to be there. Bill Moyers is going to be there. And always check facebook.com/theyoungturks, because when I go to events, we stream them. So you will get to see that debate for yourself if you can't make it to Washington. But if you can, come see the fireworks. Guarantee you it'll be fun. All right, when we come back, a progressive does something very, very wrong. I'll give you the details. We'll be back. Thanks for listening to this podcast. You're only halfway through, so hold, stay right here. Just want to remind you, if you want to get all 5 segments of the Young Turks commercial free, these are just 2 of them. Every day we do it. So go to tytnetwork.com/join, and you get the whole 5 segments, 2 hours, ad free. Do it now. Just this week alone, you know who's been in the studios? Hall of Famer Gary Payton was on TYT Sports with J.R. Jackson. Louis Hertham, I should say, was on What the Flick. He's one of the stars of Westwood. He's the dad of the main actress in there, and he's a TYT fan too. He's awesome. Daniel Franzese from Mean Girls and the HBO show Looking was on Pop Trigger. Gabrielle Dennis, star of Netflix's series Luke Cage, was on What the Flick. Singer James Maslow was on Pop Trigger. And tomorrow, Alice Eve is going to be on What the Flick, okay? Alice Eve was in Star Trek. She's in Black Mirror. And she's going to be joined by her brother Jack Eve to discuss their upcoming movie, Bees Make Honey. And so you got to make sure to check that out on What the Flick. And a convenient way to get all this stuff is to go on our app. And then so you could watch all this at your convenience. So tyt.com/app to make that happen, or obviously just type in TYT in the App Store. Okay, so I love all the folks. I'm so like, I know a lot of those actors, and the Westworld actor and I talked for a little bit, and he's really progressive, and I loved it, etc. I'm so bummed I missed Gary Payton. I love Gary Payton, but he says he's going to come back a lot, so that's great. Okay, real quick comments for you guys. YouTube Super Chat. Robert Erickson says, I'll help you and give 50 kroners. Glad to give a progressive person a helping hand. We broke Trump today, one step at a time. We will get them. And I don't.
Just give me a little bit of that optimism.
I love it. Give me optimism and kroners all day long. Okay, so thank you guys. And last comment for you guys comes from Twitter, #TYT Live. Talk to us on Twitter when we're live, which is of course 6 to 8 p.m. every day. Jeff Guidati writes in, the con artist in chief strategy. 1, manufacture a crisis. 2, blame your opposition. 3, resolve the crisis and tell everyone what a hero you are. Yes, but you know what?
It worked with North Korea.
It did, that's right. That's a great example of it.
It definitely worked with North Korea, where like if you criticize that summit even a little bit, you're in favor of nuclear war.
Yeah, but it did not work in this case. No, he's hurt, dog. Don't ask him if he's all right. So sometimes it's done in a ham-handed way, especially with Donald Trump's tiny ham hands. All right, so what's next, Anna?
All right. The 10 cities that the Trump administration has essentially constructed in order to detain migrant children and separate them from their parents is costing us quite a bit of money. In fact, according to reports, the cost of holding migrant children in newly created tent cities is about $775 per person per night. And part of the reason why is because you are essentially constructing these tents or putting up these tents, and then you have to have infrastructure to keep the kids alive, including air conditioning. You need medical workers, and you need security. Now,
I'm going to interrupt Anna to say, I guarantee you there's right-wingers now going, what do they need air conditioning for? Oh, it's so fancy. It's only 100 degrees in the desert. They don't need that. What do they need medical workers for anyway?
Later on, we're going to talk a little bit about what some of these Trump supporters think about the policy of separating the minors from their family. It's amazing the type of cruelty that some people in America will justify. Now, by contrast, it costs about $256 per person per night to hold children in permanent HHS facilities like Casa Padre in Brownsville, Texas. and detention centers like the one run by US Customs and Immigration Enforcement in Dilley, Texas.
That's Dilly, Texas.
Oh, okay. That costs about $298 per resident per night, per prisoner per night. That's really what it means.
Yeah. So look, as usual, it's a knuckleheaded move. You just don't need the tent cities. They look terrible from a point of optics. I don't mean that they're not pleasant to look at. I mean, no one is comfortable with the idea of us having tent cities of refugees inside the country. And Casa Padre has the cage. That's the one we've shown you and all the media has shown you before. But at least they're inside of a building that's got air conditioning in it already, and they get the meals, etc. You don't have to reconstruct everything. So there's a host of bad options here. But the tent cities is the worst option, and it costs the most. So it makes no sense at all.
Yeah. So let's move on to other news. Corey Lewandowski was recently on Fox News, and he was debating a Democratic strategist on the issue of the zero tolerance policy, specifically separating children from their parents as they come to the border seeking asylum. Now, take a look at how Lewandowski responded to a story about a Down syndrome, a little girl with Down syndrome. Take a look.
A 10-year-old girl with Down syndrome who was taken from her mother and put in a cage. I read about did you say want to a 10-year-old with Down syndrome being taken from her mother?
What I said is you can pick anything you want out, but the bottom line is very clear. When you cross the border illegally,
this policy is abhorrent. It is offensive to all.
Where were you during the Obama administration when this policy was in place?
This administration policy was not done during the administration. You are now lying about this policy. In addition to saying wah, and we have members of the Trump team who are going wah wah when you learn about the stories.
That's some excellent journalistic work by the Fox News anchor in the middle. But nonetheless, womp womp. So Corey Lewandowski is trash. I'm done with civility. I'm done with pretending like Trump, his goons, and his supporters are decent human beings worthy of respect. They're not. I mean, how many more examples do people need to understand that these individuals are complete monsters?
So I'm trying to think of a scenario that would be worse. But a 10-year-old separated from her parents, that's already terrible. She's got Down syndrome. He's like, womp womp. Oh, what do you want me to have sympathy for a 10-year-old with Down syndrome? Separated from her parents and has no idea what's going on, I must be terrified. Womp womp. I guarantee you there are people watching this video who'll be like, yeah, man, that's the right way to show her. That'll show that 10-year-old she had it coming, right? Well, you're the bad guys of history. I don't know what to tell you. This is not, Anna's absolutely right. I'm so tired of the establishment media doing false equivalency. Well, I mean, on the one hand this, on the other hand that. Andrea Mitchell had a quote today where she's like, we've been taught and we've been doing on the one hand and on the other hand for decades, and now this really strains us and we don't know whether we should keep doing it. Andrea, I got news for you, and I know you're in the news business. You shouldn't do on the one hand and on the other hand. You should have the courage to actually give your viewers the truth, even if it makes them uncomfortable. And for Republican viewers, it does make them uncomfortable that, hey, don't call me the bad guys. I just want to crush 10-year-olds with Down syndrome and rip them away from their parents. Wah, wah. I guess you're worried about that, you pansy. Like, you're not getting it. That's what bad guys do. So one side, you can say, are you kidding me? The Democrats, we're not saying be partisan. We're not saying being biased. Say, oh, the Democrats are always good. Of course not. We've criticized the Democrats in 1,000 different ways. And you can say, hey, here's my clear perspective. I'm a progressive and here's my thoughts on the Republicans, Democrats, or I'm a conservative, you're on Fox News, or wherever you are on the political spectrum. But you have to give people what reality is.
Not only that.
So when Lewandowski, for example, says, forget the womp womp, okay, don't, because he's a monster. But then he goes on to say it was the same policy as Obama. Well, that's just not true. So the so-called anchor in the middle there, is her job as a reporter or a journalist, someone in media, to say, now look, you can have any opinion you want on 10-year-olds being ripped away from their parents. Some think great, wonderful, some think bad. Okay, those are your two sides. But Obama did not have the same policy. They don't even do that.
So it's Fox News, and I'm not surprised about anything that happens on Fox News. But when it comes to the other cable news networks that pretend like they're doing journalistic work, can you at least stop having crazy people on the air? Crazy people who are going to say the most predictable things. Corey Lewandowski, we know what he's gonna say. Kellyanne Conway, we know what she's gonna say. I'm so tired of CNN anchors having Kellyanne Conway on, and then they pretend like they're playing tough ball with her, right? Tough ball, hard ball with her.
Tough ball sounds interesting.
It does. Right, like, we're doing real work here. We're gonna have Kellyanne Conway on. She's gonna say all the predictable things. We're gonna push back a little bit, and then that's it. We've done our job. No, but we're tired of hearing from her. I'm tired of giving people like that a platform to spew their nonsense. Because essentially what you see on cable news is not just a neutral representation of both sides. What you see is an extreme representation of the right continuously, and an incredibly tame, like lackluster representation of the left. And it drives me crazy. You don't really have like neutrality if that's what they're going for.
Neutrality is a terrible standard.
It is.
To begin with.
But they fail at that too.
They don't even manage to do that, right? Which now brings us to the Lewandowski coming back on television today. So now, let's see if the anchor challenges him. She's gonna ask him the question, obviously, that's why they had him back on. And then let's then see how many times he lies in his response. And note whether he's apologetic, and she gives him a softball at one point. I think that's the most interesting part is his response. So let's watch.
You made a comment last night that's gotten a lot of attention in the media. Would you like to address that right now?
Well, I'd love to address it because my comment was specifically about Zach trying to politicize the use of children as a political football in this discussion, because the law is very clear. When parents commit crimes by coming into this country, regardless of who their children are, they are separated because we are a nation of laws.
But to be clear, you were not speaking about the young girl with Down syndrome that was separated from her parents at the border?
Look, I don't know the young girl that Zach referenced. I was mocking Zach, a liberal Democrat National Committee activist who is doing nothing but politicizing the issue of making an example of one particular child.
There are some who say that the president can change this with the stroke of his pen. You just heard Chuck Schumer say it. The president has said that. Do you feel that you owe an apology of any sort?
An apology? And I owe an apology to the children whose parents are putting them in a position that is forcing them to be separated. We owe an apology to Jameel Shaw and Brian Terry and Kate Steinle's family, who have allowed those individuals to be killed by illegal aliens.
Okay, so first let me break down the lies. My favorite was, the president can fix it with a stroke of a pen. That's not true. Later in the day, the president fixed it with a stroke of a pen. He signed an executive order reversing his policy from 2 months ago. What happened? I thought you said it wasn't true. Oops. And he, of course.
Stop, 1 second. He did not reverse his policy from 2 months ago. Zero tolerance policy very much in place. We're just detaining children with their parents now. We're imprisoning children with their parents. So
what are you
let's
doing?
be clear about that.
What are you doing, journalism?
No, but I want us to be absolutely clear because, and also I don't like the phrasing, the president did fix it. He didn't fix anything. He didn't fix anything. All he did was take it down a tiny, tiny bit from the insane cruelty that these immigrants experienced before. The kids are just gonna be imprisoned with their parents.
Right,
okay.
But can the president, with the stroke of a pen, make sure that the kids are not taken away from their parents? Corey Lewandowski just said, no, he can't. And later in the day, he did. So an obvious and brazen lie again by Corey Lewandowski. And he said, the Democrats are politicizing the children. But it was Trump's policy 2 months ago to politicize the children by saying that we should take them away from their families.
Right, and exactly, it was Trump's decision to hold migrant children hostage until he got exactly what he wanted in the form of legislation from Congress, which included getting rid of protections for children who are detained and also insane funding to the tune of tens of billions of dollars for a stupid wall. So that's politicizing the children.
But to me, the most interesting part, as I told you, was in the middle. Not when she asked him if he's going to apologize, but the anchor said, to be clear, you were not speaking about the young girl with Down syndrome that was separated from her parents at the border. So that's the softball. She's helping him. She's like, you weren't speaking about the girl, right? So the easy answer is, no, of course I wasn't speaking about the girl. I have tremendous sympathy for her and her family. It's just that I thought Zach was making the wrong kind of point and I was talking about Zach. That's an easy softball answer to a softball question. But Lewandowski can't even do that. He said, if you saw in that tape, if you paid attention, he said, quote, look, I don't know the young girl that Zach referenced.
Yeah.
He couldn't be human for just a second.
Because he's not human.
Right?
He's subhuman.
It's so easy to say, oh no, I feel for that girl and I have sympathy for that girl. Instead he said, look, I don't know the girl that Zach referenced, right? No sympathy at all. Why do you think Donald Trump is considering bringing Corey Lewandowski back into the White House? When Trump sees that on Fox News, he doesn't think like the rest of us, oh, what a jerk. He thinks, that's a strong guy. That's very strong, not apologizing, strongly denying it, blaming it on Obama. I like that. And that's what Lewandowski's doing. He's auditioning for an audience of one. So the rest of us see a monster, Donald Trump sees an ally.
Okay, let's move on. Actually, let's take a break. When we come back, Kirstjen Nielsen gets harassed, and I like it.
No, okay, so that's
no.
Interesting debate.
I love it. We'll be back.
Thanks for watching what I hope was a lovely edition of the Young Turks. Now you know that is 2 of the 5 segments that we do because that's free. We want to have you support independent media and come watch the whole show that we do every day. That's 5 segments overall, no ads at all. That's at tytnetwork.com/join. Come become a member. Thanks for watching either way. Thanks for listening to the full episode of The Young Turks. Support our work, listen ad-free, access members-only bonus content, and more by subscribing to Apple Podcasts at apple.co/TYT. I'm your host, Cenk Uygur, and I'll see you soon.